Hey, welcome to a new video. The Volkswagen Schwimmwagen, also known as the Type 166, was an innovative amphibious vehicle widely used by the German army during World War II. Designed by the famous automotive engineer Ferdinand Porsche, the Schwimmwagen was based on the Volkswagen Beetle chassis, making it versatile and practical for military operations. It was a lightweight four-wheel drive vehicle that could travel both on land and through water. Thanks to its unique hull design, the vehicle could float and propel itself in water, making it one of the most effective amphibious vehicles of its time. With over 15,000 units produced, it remains the most mass-produced amphibious vehicle in the world. Some Schwimmwagens were deployed on the Eastern Front, helping soldiers cross rivers and muddy terrain. Its compact size and surprising maneuverability also made it ideal for reconnaissance missions in difficult terrain. After the war, the Schwimmwagen remained popular due to its unique design and capabilities. British troops, who seized the Volkswagen factory in 1945, reportedly even used the vehicle recreationally.
Are you new to this channel? Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And before we start, also like the video.
One of the most impressive vehicles of the German war machine was the Panzerkampfwagen Tiger II, better known as the Tiger II or Königstiger. This heavy tank symbolized both the technological ambition and logistical overreach of the Third Reich. Developed as the successor to the already feared Tiger I, it was introduced in 1944 and designed to outperform any Allied tank with sheer firepower and virtually impenetrable armor. The Tiger II combined the thick armor of the Tiger I with the sloped design of the Soviet T-34, allowing it to both deflect and absorb incoming shells. Armed with one of the most powerful tank guns of the war, the Tiger II could destroy almost any enemy tank at long range. Its front armor was up to 6 inches, or 150 millimeters thick, and sloped for maximum effectiveness. It first saw action in Normandy after D-Day and later during the Battle of the Bulge. However, the tank had major drawbacks. It was extremely heavy, fuel-hungry, and prone to mechanical issues. Repairs on the battlefield were difficult due to its complexity. Only 492 units were built, far too few to turn the tide of the war. The Henchel HS129 was a German twin-engine ground attack aircraft, specifically designed to destroy heavily armored Soviet tanks like the T-34. It was primarily deployed on the Eastern Front between 1942 and 1945. The design featured a compact cockpit protected by a steel bathtub to shield the pilot from ground fire, though this protection resulted in a cramped workspace with poor visibility. Early models were underpowered due to weak Argus AS410 engines, but the later B-series received stronger French Gnome-Rhone engines. Eventually, the HS129 was equipped with a massive 75mm BK 7.5 cannon, adapted from the PAK-40 anti-tank gun. Only 25 aircraft could carry this weapon configuration due to its enormous recoil and weight. After brief deployment in North Africa, it was mainly used on the Eastern Front, where its anti-tank capability was most needed. Despite its impressive firepower, the aircraft remained vulnerable to enemy fighters and often required air cover to operate effectively. The Leer Ponzer played an important role in Germany's early war strategy. These fast and agile vehicles were designed to scout enemy positions and relay crucial information to the front lines. Built by companies such as Bossing-Nag and Horch, they were deployed from the forests of Poland to the deserts of North Africa and the vast plains of the Eastern Front. The SD-KFZ-222, equipped with a 0.8-inch or 20mm cannon and open turret, was particularly effective against infantry and light vehicles. The SD-KFZ-223 added a large antenna and advanced radio equipment for long-range communication. Though lightly armored and vulnerable to anti-tank weapons, these vehicles excelled in speed, flexibility, and tactical value. Their reconnaissance work was so valuable that they were often accompanied by infantry or heavier armored support to compensate for their vulnerabilities. They didn't win battles directly, but they made victories possible. The Focke-Wulf Trib Flugal is without a doubt one of Nazi Germany's most bizarre and futuristic aviation projects. Designed in 1944 during the desperate final phase of the war, this vertical takeoff and landing aircraft was classified as a Wunderwaffe, or wonder weapon, intended to turn the tide of the conflict. Instead of fixed wings, the Trib Flugal had 3 enormous rotor wings rotating around the fuselage, with ramjet engines mounted on their tips. This rotation generated both lift and thrust, allowing the aircraft to take off vertically. ideal at a time when airfields were constantly under attack. Once airborne, the craft would tilt horizontally to engage enemy bombers with 4 planned 1.2-inch or 30mm cannons. However, the design remained purely theoretical. No prototype was ever built or tested. The Trib Flugal stayed a paper concept, a bizarre blend of visionary engineering and desperate fantasy. The Mercedes-Benz 770 Grosser, also known as the Grosser Mercedes, was not a weapon but a symbol of power, prestige, and propaganda in Nazi Germany. Originally introduced in 1930, this imposing luxury car became infamous during the Third Reich as the favored state vehicle of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi elite. With its size, luxurious design, and striking appearance, the 770 was a rolling symbol of authoritarian megalomania. The later models, especially the W150 series introduced in 1938, were equipped with armor plating and bulletproof glass, making them some of the first true armored limousines. Under the hood was a 20-gallon or 7.7-liter supercharged V8 engine, producing over 230 horsepower. Very impressive for its time, especially considering the heavy armor. With its long wheelbase and elegant fenders, the car had an almost regal appearance. It was ideal for military parades, diplomatic ceremonies, and propaganda events. Hitler's personal models often appeared in footage of speeches and state visits, usually with an open roof so he could salute the crowd. These images contributed to the global image of a strong, untouchable regime. Though a luxury vehicle, the 770 became inseparably linked with the militaristic nature of the Nazi regime, its elegance repurposed as a display of power. The Jag Tiger represented the peak of Nazi Germany's obsession with heavy tank destroyers, an almost unstoppable giant designed to eliminate enemy armor from extreme distances. Based on the already impressive Tiger II chassis, the Jag Tiger weighed nearly 75 tons, making it the heaviest operational combat vehicle of World War II. With its thick frontal armor and enormous size, it was designed for static defense rather than rapid maneuvering. Its main weapon was a massive anti-tank gun capable of destroying virtually any Allied tank long before they could return fire. The Jag Tiger's front armor was up to 10 inches or 250 millimeters thick, making it nearly impervious to most Allied weapons. But such brute force came at a price. The Jag Tiger was slow, prone to mechanical failures, and often fell victim to its own weight. The engine and drivetrain struggled under the load. Only 70 to 80 units were built between 1944 and 1945 due to bombings and resource shortages. Many saw action on the Western Front, particularly during the Battle of the Bulge. When properly positioned, a single Jag Tiger could decimate an entire enemy formation. But such scenarios were rare. More often, they broke down due to engine trouble or fuel shortages rather than enemy fire. But imagine how deadly they could have been if they had been reliable. The SD-KFZ-2. Kettenkrad was one of the most unique and versatile vehicles used by Nazi Germany during World War II. A cross between a motorcycle and a tracked vehicle, it showcased German ingenuity in tackling the rough terrain of Europe and the Eastern Front. Originally designed in the late 1930s as a light tractor for airborne troops, the Kettenkrad quickly proved useful in multiple roles, laying cables, towing light artillery, and transporting troops, ammunition, supplies across muddy or snowy terrain where regular vehicles got stuck. At the front was a traditional motorcycle frame with handlebars for low-speed steering, while the rear tracks provided stability and grip. Despite its appearance, it was surprisingly fast, reaching speeds of up to 43 miles per hour or 70 kilometers per hour on paved roads. Its compact size made it ideal for narrow paths, urban ruins, and even air transport. Although it had no armor or weaponry, the Kettenkrad was known for its reliability. On the Eastern Front, it was often used to pull stranded vehicles free, deliver supplies to the front lines, or lay communication cables. In North Africa, it proved especially useful in desert conditions for the Afrika Korps. The Landwasserschlepper, literally land-water tractor, was one of Nazi Germany's lesser-known but ambitious military engineering projects. It was an amphibious tracked vehicle designed to cross rivers, support coastal landings, and traverse swampy terrain. Developed in the late 1930s by Rheinmetall Borsig for the German Engineering Corps, the LWS fit into Germany's early strategy of rapid combined arms warfare, where logistical flexibility was crucial in river-laden, infrastructure-poor regions like Eastern Europe. It resembled a cross between a boat and a tank, a steel ship-like hull, tracks for land movement, and rear-mounted propellers for water propulsion. Though unarmored and unarmed, it was highly mobile and could transport troops, equipment, and supplies across water or marshy ground. The LWS could also tow pontoons, barges, or artillery pieces through shallow water, and was theoretically ideal for bridge-building units and stormtroopers. However, interest waned as amphibious operations like Operation Sea Lion, the planned invasion of Britain, were abandoned. Only a handful of prototypes and early production models were built. Still, some were deployed on the Eastern Front and in the Balkans, where such terrain called for these capabilities. A more advanced version, the LWS-2, was developed later in the war, featuring improved armor and better water performance. The FA-223 Drak was one of Nazi Germany's most futuristic aviation projects, and is often regarded as the world's first truly functional transport helicopter. Developed by Focke-Achilles starting in 1940, the aircraft was years ahead of its time in an era when helicopters were barely operational. With twin rotors mounted on either side of the fuselage, the Drak could take off and land vertically, allowing it to transport cargo, wounded personnel, and even vehicles over difficult terrain without the need for a runway. Its versatility made it useful for mountain rescues, transport missions, and reconnaissance, especially in areas inaccessible to conventional aircraft. However, production remained extremely limited. Allied bombings of the factories resulted in only 20 units being built. Despite the small number, the Drake set the standard for future helicopter developments worldwide. With a top speed of about 112 miles per hour, or 180 kilometers per hour, and a range of 435 miles, or 700 kilometers, it was revolutionary for its time. Had Nazi Germany had more time to develop this technology on a larger scale, it could have radically altered the way war was fought.
The V3 cannon, also known as the London gun, was a super cannon developed by the Nazis during World War II. This thing wasn't just any ordinary cannon, it was enormous, and the idea was to use it as a mega long-range shooter. Imagine a gigantic cannon capable of firing projectiles at high speeds over vast distances. The V3 cannon was intended to bombard London from two large bunkers in the northern France. It was a frightening idea, and the intention was to terrify the city's population. It was developed by a clever German engineer named August Konders, who presented his idea to the Minister of War Production. Hitler was immediately enthusiastic and pumped a lot of money into the project. Building this cannon involved a lot of digging and forced labors in a massive underground bunker in northern France. But ultimately, before the cannon could hit London, the launch facilities were destroyed by Allied bombing raids. The V3 cannon was never used as intended. However, two similar cannons were used to bombard Luxembourg from December 1944 to February 1945.
The Sturm Tiger was one of Nazi Germany's most terrifying and unusual armored vehicles, specifically designed to destroy heavily fortified targets. Instead of engaging enemy tanks, it was intended to wipe out bunkers, fortifications, and entire city blocks with a single devastating shot. Built on the chassis of the infamous Tiger I, the Sturm Tiger featured a massive superstructure instead of the standard turret, housing a 15 inches or 38 centimeter rocket mortar originally developed for the Navy. The result was a mobile cannon capable of reducing entire buildings to rubble with a single projectile. Developed after the brutal street fighting in Stalingrad, the Sturm Tiger was equipped with the RW-61 rocket mortar, firing shells weighing over 770 pounds or 350 kilograms, both physically and psychologically devastating. The vehicle weighed more than 65 tons, and to manage the gun's enormous recoil, it was fitted with a complex system of dampers and venting ports. Sturm Tigers were deployed during the Warsaw Uprising, the Battle of the Bulge, and the defense of the Rhineland, serving as mobile fortresses that could delay enemy breakthroughs or destroy strategic targets.
The Kougal Panzer is a unique and enigmatic armored vehicle from World War II. It's one of the most unusual tanks ever built, characterized by its spherical shape. It has a minimalist design on the outside, consisting of a cylindrical body in the middle where one person could fit. Two hemispherical wheels are placed on both sides of the central part and serve as its means of propulsion. The vehicle has thin armor plating of approximately 5 millimeters, although the exact composition of the armor is unknown. However, why this vehicle was built and what its purpose was remains a subject of debate. The most common theory is that it was likely used as an experimental reconnaissance vehicle, though its low speed and limited visibility raise questions about the effectiveness of that role. There's also one example of this vehicle that exists today. It's displayed at the Kubinka Tank Museum in Moscow, Russia, where it's listed as exhibition number 37. It's speculated that this vehicle was captured by the Red Army. Access and photography inside this vehicle is strictly prohibited, making it difficult to verify the internal layout and components of the vehicle.
The Minenroy was one of the strangest and most mysterious vehicles Nazi Germany developed during the war. Designed as a mine-clearing vehicle, the Minenroy looked like something out of a dystopian science fiction film rather than a battlefield machine. With its spiked wheels, thick armor, and insect-like profile, it was built to drive straight through minefields and absorb heavy explosions. The prototype was built in 1942 by Krupp in collaboration with Alket and Mercedes-Benz. The Minenroy had 3 colossal wheels, 2 in front and 1 in the rear, fitted with metal cleats to absorb explosive blasts. The crew compartment was armored and positioned between the front wheels, protected from detonations. However, the concept proved impractical. The vehicle was slow, mechanically unreliable, too heavy for rough terrain, and entirely unsuitable for dynamic warfare. After a few tests, the project was quietly cancelled, and only 1 prototype was ever built, which never saw combat.
The Hanibbo project has become a source of many myths and fictional stories, often associated with secret Nazi bases on the dark side of the moon, or encounters with extraterrestrial beings. There's various theories claiming that this project revolved around the development and testing of advanced tech, including anti-gravity engines and flying saucers. It's believed that if the Germans had completed these weapons in time, they could have had a significant impact on the outcome of the war. Some theories suggest that the project was a flying saucer secured by the Americans during Operation High Jump in 1947. It may have been linked to the UFO incident in Roswell, New Mexico. The Hanibbo project also garnered attention in popular culture, including books, model kits, video games, and movies. It's also appeared in video games, such as X-Plane 11 and Warplane's World War II dogfight.
The Blohm & Voss 238 was the largest aircraft ever built by Nazi Germany and could have been the world's largest operational aircraft had it entered full production. Designed by the Hamburg-based shipbuilding and aircraft manufacturer Blohm & Voss, the BV-238 was an ambitious project. It was a giant flying boat intended for long-range transport, maritime reconnaissance, and possibly even bombing missions. With a wingspan of over 197 feet, or 60 meters, and a weight exceeding 100 tons, the BV-238 was a true airborne giant. Powered by 6 Daimler-Benz DB603 V12 engines, it could carry troops, vehicles, or cargo over vast distances. The fuselage was ship-like for water landings, with multiple stabilizers and high-mounted wings. Technically innovative, it used lightweight alloys and a reinforced internal structure to keep its weight manageable. The only completed version, the V1, first flew in 1944 over the German Schal Lake. Before it could enter military service, it was destroyed by Allied fighter bombers while moored, bringing Nazi Germany's dream of air supremacy to an end. The Panzerzug, or German armored train, was one of the most imposing and unconventional weapons in the Nazi arsenal. These steel behemoths combined the firepower of armored vehicles with the mobility of the railroad, serving as rolling fortresses armored, and capable of transporting troops and tanks. Based on 19th century ideas, these trains were revived by Hitler's war machine, especially on the vast and unstable Eastern Front, where railways were crucial for supply lines. Panzerzüge were created by reinforcing existing locomotives and rail cars with thick steel plating to withstand firearms, explosives, and even anti-tank weapons. They were equipped with anti-aircraft guns, machine guns, tank turrets, and heavy artillery, often mounted on rotating platforms. Some trains featured command cars, reconnaissance cars, or flak wagons functioning as fully mobile battle formations. Others carried tanks or infantry ready to be deployed at strategic points. Especially in Poland, the Balkans, and the Soviet Union, they played a major role in suppressing resistance and protecting vital rail connections. Beyond their combat power, they had enormous psychological impact, a thundering symbol of Nazi dominance on the rails.
The Landkreuzer P1000 Rot was a proposed design for a super heavy tank during World War II. This tank design is said to have been proposed in June 1942 by Edward Grote, a director at Krupp. The plan was to build a 1,000-ton tank, much heavier than the Panzer, which was at 188 tons, the heaviest tank to ever been built. It was envisioned that the tank would have a fully tracked chassis and would utilize main gun turrets. Additionally, the tank was proposed to include a garage for 2 engines and a sickbay. The project received approval from Adolf Hitler, who showed interest in its development. However, the tank was ultimately cancelled in early 1943. This vehicle was seen as a super heavy tank capable of performing complex tasks on the front lines and potentially altering the course of history.
The Henchel Volksjäger was Nazi Germany's desperate final attempt to achieve air superiority. A jet fighter designed in the last months of the war, it was meant to be produced quickly, cheaply, and in mass quantities, even operated by young or barely trained pilots. Developed under the 1944 Emergency Fighter Program, the HE-162 was a response to the devastating bombings of German cities and industry. The aircraft reached speeds of over 560 miles per hour, or 900 kilometers per hour, making it one of the fastest planes of the war, and was armed with 2 0.8 inches or 20mm cannons. Production was extremely rapid, but also sloppy, and the use of non-strategic materials such as wood led to structural weaknesses. These fighters were hastily assembled and barely tested, resulting in numerous mechanical problems. Nevertheless, the concept was futuristic, a small, lightweight jet fighter capable of attacking enemy bombers in large numbers. In theory, even members of the Hitler Youth were supposed to fly it, hence the name People's Fighter. In practice, however, it came far too late and was far too weak to counter an overwhelming enemy.
The Silber Vogle was a design for a rocket-powered suborbital bomb aircraft created by Eugen Songer and Irene Brett in the late 1930s for the Nazi Germany. It was conceived as part of a project which aimed to develop long-range bombers capable of reaching the United States from Europe. It was intended to be a suborbital aircraft, capable of flying at high altitudes at extreme speeds, and it would be powered by a rocket engine. The plan was to launch the aircraft from a 2-mile-long monorail track, accelerated by a rocket-powered sled. Once the guide rail ended, the main rocket engine would ignite, propelling the aircraft to its maximum velocity. The aircraft was intended to glide back to Earth after reaching peak altitude, enabling reuse and cost savings. Despite the design, a physical prototype was never built. The project remained largely on paper, and the end of World War II brought an end to the further development. Believe it or not, the design and concepts contributed to the development of later spaceplanes. For example, the regeneratively cooled rocket engine became a lasting feature in the design of future rocket engines.
U-864 was no ordinary submarine. It was a ghost ship full of secrets, a silent witness to Nazi Germany's hidden ambitions. Instead of torpedoes, this U-boat carried advanced technology that could have altered the course of the war. As part of Operation Caesar, its mission was to transport jet engine components, blueprints, and over 60 tons of mercury to Japan. Commissioned in 1943 under Korvettenkapitan Ralph Reimar Wolfram, U-864 set out in December 1944 from Kiel, following a route north of Scotland through the South Atlantic and toward Japan. But things quickly went wrong. Mechanical problems forced the submarine to return to Bergen in Norway. There, British codebreakers at Bletchley Park intercepted its mission. On February 9, 1945, near the Norwegian island of Fedje, the British submarine HMS Venturer, commanded by Lieutenant Jimmy Launders, detected the U-864. As both submarines maneuvered underwater, Launders calculated a distance shot, executing the first successful submerged submarine versus submarine attack in history. All 73 crew members perished. In 2003, the wreck was rediscovered with 1,857 barrels of toxic mercury still on board, which continued to leak into the seabed, causing an ongoing environmental disaster off the Norwegian coast. Our Reichenberg was Nazi Germany's grim response to desperation, a manned version of the notorious WW1 flying bomb, designed for extremely high-risk one-way missions. Based on the Fiesler Fi-103, the Reichenberg retained its signature form, a stubby pulse-jet-powered aircraft with short wings and an explosive warhead in the nose. The Argus AS-014 pulse jet produced the same piercing howl that made the V-weapons infamous. Under the leadership of Otto Skorzeny, Hitler's favorite commando, a special unit was trained, consisting of volunteers from the Luftwaffe and Hitler Youth for these perilous missions. Although officially pilots were supposed to bail out in time, the chances of survival were minimal. The Reichenberg was unstable and extremely difficult to control safely. Test flights with glider models often failed, and even successful landings were highly dangerous. The training process itself was so hazardous that several test pilots died during preparation. As the war progressed and Allied air superiority grew, the project was eventually canceled entirely. Although dozens of pilots were trained, the aircraft was never deployed in combat.
The Panther tank was a medium tank developed by Nazi Germany during World War II. It was intended as a counterpart to the Soviet T-34 and as a replacement for the Panzer III and Panzer IV tanks. The Panther is often considered one of the best tanks of World War II due to its excellent combination of firepower, mobility, and protection. It featured sloped armor, a powerful main gun, and good mobility. The Panther saw action for the first time during the Battle of Kursk in 1943. However, the Panther tank had some issues. Early models suffered from mechanical and reliability problems, and more Panthers were lost due to engine issues than enemy action during the Battle of Kursk. The tank also had a fundamental problem with the gunner's sight, making it difficult to quickly locate targets. Its combat capabilities influenced the development of heavier tanks by the Allies. It's noteworthy that the Panther tank was captured by enemy troops on certain occasions. Russian forces captured several Panthers and used them against the Nazis on the Eastern Front. However, they were abandoned due to their complexity and difficulty in repairing them.
The Raupenschlepper Ost, or RSO, was Nazi Germany's practical answer to one of the greatest obstacles on the Eastern Front: Mud. Not a combat vehicle, nor a technological marvel, but a rugged tracked tractor that quite literally kept the Wehrmacht moving. Developed by Steyr Daimler Puch and introduced in 1942 after the disastrous first Russian winter, the RSO was designed for one purpose: to drive where nothing else could. With its tracks, high ground clearance, and enclosed cab, it could easily navigate snow, mud, and rubble. It towed anti-tank guns, delivered supplies to isolated units, recovered stranded vehicles, and in some variants was even armed with rocket launchers or anti-aircraft guns. Its simplicity made production relatively cheap and fast, which was crucial in the later years of the war. Thanks to its basic technology, it could often be repaired in the field with limited resources. The RSO was used not only on the Eastern Front, but also in Italy and the Balkans. Even after the war, some models continued to serve farmers and repair crews for years. It was slow, but extremely reliable. By war's end, tens of thousands had been built, and saw service on almost every front.
The Fritz X and Henchel HS293 were some of the first precision-guided weapons developed by Nazi Germany. They made their debut around the time of the Allied attack on Solano in September 1943. These radio-controlled weapons posed a new challenge to fleet defense and scorned hits on Allied ships, opening a new chapter in modern warfare. The Henchel HS293 was a radio-controlled glide bomb with a rocket motor. Designed as a guided anti-ship missile, it used an autopilot to maintain a straight course, and could be launched from a bomber at a sufficient distance to keep the aircraft out of reach of anti-aircraft fire. A bombarder guided the missile with a joystick and a radio control. The Fritz X was an armored guided anti-ship bomb. The Fritz X carried bombers, and was guided to its target by a crew member in the mothership, using a joystick. These weapons were designed to be dropped from an aircraft and guided to their targets, making them forerunners of today's smart bombs.
The Goliath tracked mine looked like a toy tank, but was actually a terrifying weapon. These small, remotely controlled tracked vehicles were designed to deliver explosives beneath enemy targets and then detonate from a safe distance. Developed by Borgward in the early 1940s, the Goliath carried 132 to 220 pounds, or 60 to 100 kilograms of explosives. Early models used electric motors, but later versions were fitted with gasoline engines for improved reliability. A wired remote control gave the operator full command over steering and detonation. In theory, it was ideal for urban combat and fortified positions. Drive the Goliath beneath a tank or into a bunker and blow it up without risking soldiers' lives. Some models were armored, but this provided little protection against machine gun or artillery fire. The cable connecting the Goliath to its operator was also vulnerable, often becoming the system's weak point in battle. They were deployed in Italy, on the Eastern Front, and during D-Day, but their slow speed, vulnerability, and high cost limited their success. Nevertheless, over 7,000 were produced, a very early precursor to modern military drones. The Porsche Type 64 marked the beginning of something legendary, the very first design to bear the Porsche name, laying the foundation for one of the world's most iconic sports car brands. Built in the shadow of the rising Third Reich, it was a streamlined propaganda vehicle meant to showcase Germany's technological superiority. Ferdinand Porsche designed the Type 64 for a propaganda race between Berlin and Rome, a symbolic gesture of Axis alliance. The car shared much of its engineering with the Volkswagen Beetle, but while the Beetle was modest and functional, the Type 64 was elegant and futuristic. With its teardrop-shaped aluminum body, enclosed wheels, and rear-mounted 0.26-gallon or 1-liter 4-cylinder engine, it looked like it had arrived from the future. Thanks to its light weight, it could reach speeds over 87 miles per hour, or 140 kilometers per hour, impressive for its time. Its advanced aerodynamics influenced Porsche designs for years to come. After the war, the sole surviving Type 64 ended up in private collections and was eventually auctioned for millions. Even today, the Type 64 is seen as the ancestor of all Porsche sports cars. Only 3 chassis were built between 1939 and 1940. One survived the war and is regarded as the mother of Porsche's entire sports car legacy.
The Horton HO229 was a German prototype fighter bomber, designed by Reimar and Walter Horton during World War II. It's often known as the first stealth bomber due to its design features that made it less visible to radar. The HO229 was a flying wing aircraft, meaning it had no redundant control surfaces, which helped reduce air resistance and decrease visibility on radar. It was developed in response to German Air Ministry's requirements for a bomber capable of carrying 2,200 pounds of bombs over a distance of 621 miles at a speed of 621 miles per hour. Additionally, the aircraft could reach an altitude of 49,200 feet, and it was powered by 2 jet engines, featuring a delta-shaped wing. The HO229 was intended as a fast bomber, capable of carrying a significant payload over long distances. However, the aircraft was never put into service, and only a few prototypes were built. The reasons for not going into production are diverse and include the end of the war, as well as technical challenges and changing of priorities of the German Air Ministry. Do you think we've discovered all the inventions of the Nazis, or are there still more hidden? Let me know in the comments. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos we've made, click one on the screen or take a look at the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.